Hello, USA. This is Tommy Haywood coming to you from Leesburg, Florida, the lakefront city. This is Monday, April 13th, 2020. I hope you're having a good day. Before I begin this study, let me say that our hearts go out to the people in our southern states, especially Mississippi and Georgia, where at least 17 people were killed by the terrible storms and tornadoes that went through yesterday and last night. You all are in our prayers. 11 years ago, I asked my grandson Preston a question. He responded, "I don't know, Granddaddy. I'm only 3 years old." I can't remember what my question was, but I'll never forget his humble response. It reminds me of Jesus' statement in Matthew 18, 1 through 5. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus saying, "Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Then Jesus called a little child to him, set him in the midst of them, and said, "Assuredly I say to you, unless you're converted and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever humbles himself as this little child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me." We must humble ourselves as little children to enter God's kingdom. Preston's reply reminded me of the first beatitude in Matthew 5 and verse 3. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." The poor in spirit is not the poor-spirited, but to be poor in spirit is to be spiritually bankrupt. We don't know and we can't know anything about our salvation except what God tells us in His Word, and we can't earn our salvation. We have absolutely nothing to offer God to be saved and to enter His kingdom. As we sing in the song Amazing Grace by Charlotte Elliott, "Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me." We do not deserve nor can we merit God's amazing grace and His abundant mercy. We must come to Him recognizing our spiritual bankruptcy. We see this attitude lacking in one person and present in another in Jesus' parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector, as recorded in Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. "And he spoke this parable to some who trusted themselves that they were righteous and despised others. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, 'God, I thank you that I'm not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess.' And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, 'God, be merciful to me, a sinner.' I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted." Why did Preston's response to my question remind me of the first beatitude about being poor in spirit? Well, go back to the example of the Pharisee and the tax collector in Luke chapter 18 and note verses 15 through 17. "Then they also brought infants to him that he might touch them, but when the disciples saw it, they rebuked them. But Jesus called them to him and said, 'Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them. Assuredly I say unto you, who does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will by no means enter it.' Unless one receives God's kingdom, God's rule in his life, as a little child, with dependent, humble, submissive, trusting faith, he cannot be saved. A person must be willing to admit that he doesn't know anything about how to be saved apart from God's grace as revealed in His will, and be willing to submit to God's will for his life as a little child if he's going to be saved. Our spiritual bank accounts are zero. You and I need to follow what Samuel was instructed to say, 'Speak, Lord, your servant heareth,' in 1 Samuel chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. We'll have more to say on these things next time. Till then, remember to search the Scriptures, to serve the Lord, and to share the gospel with others. And now I wish for you a very pleasant good day."